Hey everyone, my name's Nick and I wanted to share a cool project I've been working on. This was inspired by Kev from Kev's Robots PicoTamachibi build. I came across his project, which is like a mini Tamagotchi built on a Raspberry Pi Pico on YouTube. And I thought it'd be really cool to make one for my children who are 5 and 8, but also take that concept a step further and actually create like a digital bedside clock that's also a Tamagotchi. I've shared all of the original project files and links in the description, plus my own GitHub code and the STL files that I used, in case anybody else finds this useful. So let's talk about the hardware first. As you can see, my first attempt was a bit of a mess, but it worked. I ordered the PCB that Kevin had created in his first project, plus the buttons, the LCD, and the Pico W. I ordered a couple of them because I needed to make my original prototype plus the two for the kids, and I'm not very experienced in soldering, so after the first one I was just really happy to get it working, the original code, and then I bought a proper soldering iron and started to just try and do a better job the second time. That worked out okay. The soldering on my second attempt was much neater, as you can probably see here. And just a little tip, if you do decide to do this, I think the best order to go in is to solder the buttons first, every single one of the Pico contacts, and then the screen last. I did that on the last sort of version and it worked out pretty well. Then I wanted to try and create an enclosure for this, like what would the clock live in? So I took Kev's original 3D design and used that as like the template, as it were, and I found the design of a tree, just like a free 3D file. And this is the prototype here. Basically, I just cut a hole through the back of it so that the buttons and the screen matched. And then there's a hole in the top for the wire to go out and a hole in the back, which has like a door enclosure to keep it all in snug. So once I got that and then I created like the top bit, I did have a mini disaster when my 3D printer completely died during an overnight print. Got a blob of death, so I had to replace a bunch of parts, but the end product, as you can see, worked pretty well, and now my children have one of these each in their rooms. Here you can see the finished design. Pretty happy with how it turned out. This one is the Greyhound variant, and just giving a quick overview of how it looks and how it's all put together. So I wanted to create the new characters that my kids had asked for, the fox and the greyhound. And initially, I just took Kev's original design that he had done and replaced those image files, the bitmaps, just drawing my own in GIMP, and just hand drew them and just replaced all of the ones that were already there. So that was the initial kind of change that I made. I then created the variant, the greyhound, and had to like alter this code to ensure that both could be independently loaded into like the animations. And the next thing I looked at doing was being able to display the time. So I was originally just pulling that from the system time, but obviously if you're not plugged into a computer, you need to be able to pull it, set it independently. So we implemented settings by just replacing the original vitamin menu icon with a settings icon, and from there you're able to set the current time, AM PM, the pet's name, and then also the pet type, and that then forces a refresh of the whole system, and it would load either the fox or the greyhound. The age is calculated in half-day increments, so basically the main gameplay loop is to keep the pet alive by playing with it, and making sure it sleeps every once a day. And initially I had like a 48-hour period. If you didn't do any of those things, the pet would die, but it was a little harsh, especially for my 5-year-old. So I changed this to be around about a week. So if nobody interacts with the pet for a week, it would die. My son's done a little bit better at keeping it alive, but yeah, I've made it less harsh with the degradation of stats. I also wanted to improve the environment, so I implemented some background. So we got like a mountain image, which is the main area, and then I actually created a second area which is like some trees basically. And then to make it a little bit more interactive, I implemented some more animations. So we're then able to implement the ability for the fox or the greyhound to walk left or right, so that it could be in any one of say 5 positions. So it can either be left, center, right, or right again, which would be the next screen, where it can be then left and center. So there's 5 positions that the animal can move to, the pet, and that happens at random intervals. To try and make some of these things testable as well, they are activated upon using the menu. So for example, if you go and select what was the last message you'd received, immediately after that the pet will walk to the right once. So you're able to keep doing that to kind of force it over to one side of the screen, etc. So yeah, after implementing the ability to walk left and right randomly, I then added that second area, which was a tree background instead of mountains, and there is a little tree there which has like a squirrel that runs up it every now and again. I then implemented a bunch of like random events. So these were basically animations, which I thought would just bring a bit more life to it. So a butterfly might appear and the fox looks like it tracks that with its eyes. Birds occasionally fly by in different directions, and when they do, the fox gets excited and the animations speed up. It can rain for up to a minute. So that happens on a random interval, and it will only happen once per hour for a minute maximum. We also mentioned the squirrel that runs up the tree when you go to that area, and then the pet will say random things like I saw a leaf, for example. So these are random event messages which you could edit, and there's also reflections which happen at certain intervals. So like based on the health being low, it has a few things it says, and also time of day messages, for example, in the morning. Now in terms of interactivity, I wanted to implement a game, so I then added hide and seek. The idea of the hide and seek game is it's accessible from the menu, and once you've played with the pet, its happiness increases by 2 points. The hide and seek game is basically an animation in which the pet's ears appear from the bottom of the screen, and you can click A, B or X to guess the position. If you get it right, you get a point. If you get it wrong, the pet gets a point. Best of 3, regardless of the outcome, the pet's happy. So I mentioned already that you can set the time, and then we've got the 2 different pet variants, the fox and the greyhound. There's quite a lot more to this. I spent quite a long time trying to make this code quite robust, so I implemented some like screen refresh parameters, because I noticed that sometimes the screen would go blank after a certain period, and some other like just hygiene sort of changes to the code to make sure that it could run for a prolonged period. The code itself, this main file, is now absolutely massive, and I'm sure somebody else could refactor it and make it a lot cleaner, but my focus was primarily on just getting stuff working, so I did a lot of hacking around.
I just wanted to end by saying all of the code, including the STL files, is in the GitHub project, which I will link in the description. There's also the README file, which contains pretty detailed instructions on how to get everything set up, including the Pico itself, links to the original PCB design, the wiring guide, and some other resources. Thank you.